Okay. All right. Let me sit back a little bit. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. We are so grateful, thankful to God that He has provided us another opportunity to be here in Convocation. We are in our third webinar. And today we have our guest speaker, Dr. Joshua McHugh. He'll be speaking on COVID-19, the vaccine, and providing us some information. As we know, our city today, being July 1st, is wide open, and they have reached the 70%, still not full herd immunity. However, July 4th is around the corner, so you can see the motivation. And we are still advising our local assemblies to still wear your mask, still social distance. They say we can reduce it from 6 feet to 3 feet and such like. Still, we'll be asking questions, making sure that you quarantine if you travel outside of the States or if you came in contact with anyone who may have tested positive for the COVID-19. And I'm encouraging everyone, get tested regularly. I try my best to be tested twice a month, every 14 days, even though I have taken the PFIZER, first shot January 16, my second shot February 6. I got those dates etched in my brain. So by now I am fully vaccinated, and I have passed the incubation period, but still I will not behave recklessly. So we're going to open up with prayer. See our bishop, so glad to have our bishop, and see our women's president out of headquarters, Evangelist Watson, Assistant Pastor Kevin Gale. I see our treasurer, Dr. Merlin Burrell. I see Pauline Green. I see Shalene Gale. That's the wife of our assistant pastor there in headquarters. We also have Pastor Ty out of the UK. Verona Johnson, having a big family here. And we got a guest, 2314 RK Snyder Avenue, and we have Iona Tucker. Let me bow my head and let's pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, we give you thanks again. You said in your words, my people are destroyed because of lack of knowledge. Here we are, God, with a webinar. Oh God, our desire is to inform, to educate our people, to ensure, God, that as we prepare to, oh God, exit this pandemic, knowing, God, that there is a risk of another wave, that, God, we are so thankful for. Even in the kingdom, the body of Christ, we do have professionals, trained professionals, oh God, who can dispense this information accurately and provide us with the knowledge we need. We want to say thanks. We want to give you all the honor, glory, and praise. Before I bring our speaker up, Bishop, just say a few words, and then I'll bring out Dr. Josh. Just want to remember, he's always on call, so we want to make sure we maximize the time when there's no calls. So, Bishop, I just want you, sir, to just greet this body of people here.
Okay, bless the Lord, everybody. Let me greet you in the wonderful name of Jesus Christ. We are very thankful for today. Very grateful for Dr. McHugh for accepting our invitation to be able to present us with some sound advice, knowledge, and at least might be able to dispense some of the myths that we are carrying for this whole COVID-19. I'm sort of surprised that in this day and time, people are still hesitant after even realizing the death toll that is already taken on our nation, not to mind the world. We have gone over 600,000 dead already, and we are still hesitant. I think that should have been enough evidence that we should all be running, going into these clinics or wherever they are offering this. But people are people, and it doesn't matter what we do, we can't get beyond what's inside your head sometimes. So we thank you very much, sir. And I hope the information that you dispense to us today will at least be taken, and the advices that you give us will be heeded to. So God bless you all as we turn over back to you, sir, and we listen diligently to what you have to say.
So thank you, Bishop. So Dr. McHugh, without any further ado, sir, I just want to yield to you and Go ahead. You have a captive audience. God bless you, sir.
God bless you, Overseer, Pastor. God bless you, Bishop. Thank you to the church family for having me. My name is Joshua McHugh. I am an board-certified emergency medicine physician here in New York City, and I'm going to jump right into it. This is my second time with you all, so I'm very appreciative that you're having me back. I'm going to just go ahead and share my screen, and we'll jump right into it.
Thank you, sir.
Before I do get started, I will let you know that I'm currently at work, and a colleague of mine was gracious enough to switch areas with me so that I could be in a less acute side. And I have some PAs and residents who are managing things while I stepped away. But if I do get a phone call, it's because it's work related. But we should have some good time here, and hopefully the information presented will be of some use to you all. So we're going to be talking about coronavirus vaccines and treatments. Again, thank you to the leadership of Gospel Tabernacle Church and everyone for having me back. And I hope you've been having a wonderful convocation thus far. Greetings to all the other pastors and ministers and all of God's children who are joining us right now. Greetings from my pastor, Bishop Senior, at what we call Top Church, United Church of Jesus Christ on Bronxwood Avenue. What we know, and we know quite a bit about coronavirus at this point, but there's still so much that we don't know. Coronavirus, COVID-19, because of the year that it was discovered. Excuse me, I'm just trying to minimize something here so I could see. Actually, I have my iPad. I got my backup iPad. We'll do that. All right. COVID-19, because of the year that we realized that this strain of virus was devastating the world, it's caused great destruction in our communities and throughout the world, particularly communities of color. And this is why it's so important to be talking about vaccines, especially, we're post a lockdown period. The world is opening back up. As Pastor said earlier, July 1st is the date now, and New York City is back open. A lot of the country is open. Nations are open. Some places are actually having a mini lockdown again. And some places are going back to a mask mandate just because COVID is still rampant. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. As of last night, there has been over 182 million cases of documented coronavirus, leading to nearly 4 million deaths. In the United States alone, there's been over 600,000 deaths related to coronavirus. Worldwide, there's been over 3 million doses of vaccinations given so far. And we'll talk about the vaccines that are authorized here in the United States. While the number of deaths may seem small in comparison to the number of cases, what the media does not highlight is the amount of complications that results from COVID. We do see that in the hospital a lot. Patients have ended up with blood clots and strokes and long-term lung pathology and difficulty breathing because of coronavirus. So it's not just the folks who've died, but folks who are still living with the complications of the virus. So that number is actually greater than what we hear in media on a day-to-day basis. And I'm sure by now you've heard about the Delta variant. The Delta variant is a strain of coronavirus which actually is more potent and more contagious. And you may ask, how do we have a strain of what we saw last year? Viruses behave like viruses and they rapidly mutate. You could think of any virus that you do know of, such as HIV. One reason why HIV was hard to treat is because it rapidly mutates. coronavirus is no different. It from host to host, from everybody who gets infected, it changes its genetic makeup. So right now we have the Delta variant. 1 in 4 cases in the United States is because of the Delta variant, and it's been found in all 50 states so far. And let's talk about the vaccines. So the FDA authorized only for emergency use 3 different vaccines. There are some others, such as the AstraZeneca, which is available in the UK and other parts of the world. But here in the United States, there's the Pfizer, which you've heard of, Moderna as well, and the Johnson & Johnson. We'll talk about also how they work and who's eligible to get them. Now, Pfizer is given in 2 doses, 21 days apart. Moderna is also given in 2 doses, 28 days apart, and the Johnson & Johnson vaccines a single dose. The FDA has authorized Pfizer for everyone ages 12 and up. Moderna and Johnson & Johnson are still for everyone 18 and older. They are effective against the variants, including the Delta variant, as of what we know so far with recent research. So the mRNA vaccines, those are the Pfizer and Moderna. How does this work? First, let's start off that there have been over 30,000 participants in each of those trials before it was authorized for use for the public. And what does it do? It takes the mRNA. mRNA is a basic structure which is used to make DNA and form an actual cell. So it takes the mRNA of the spike protein. It's a non-lethal component of the virus, and it replicates that in the body once it's injected. So once your body receives that mRNA and converts it to DNA and forms the spike protein, your body realizes it's a foreign invader and creates antibodies to the spike protein and to the virus in general. In a sense, it alerts your body's home defense system that there is an intruder, even though the intruder is harmless. And it creates a system to attack the intruder. So if you're ever come in contact with the actual virus, your body has already built up an immune response, antibodies are present and able to attack the virus before it takes root in cells and cause destruction. That's how vaccines work in general. This is different because it's taking the actual mRNA of a non-lethal part of the virus. As you can see on the diagram here, I don't know if you could see the arrow at all, but those red protrusions out of the virus, those would represent the spike protein. Again, a non-lethal part of the virus. What's in the mRNA vaccine? It has the mRNA, it has salts, sugar, and a buffer solution so that once injected, it would be taken up into the cells. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is more traditional technology. It actually takes a modified older virus and injects the spike protein into that virus. And then once that's injected into the host, a human, your body then again makes antibodies to a virus. This Johnson & Johnson uses like a dead version of the adenovirus, and adenovirus is what we normally see in the common cold. So if you've ever had a cold, cough, runny nose, nasal congestion, usually around wintertime, it's because of adenovirus or one of many viruses that we see at that time. So the Johnson & Johnson just takes a modified version of that and injects it with the spike protein of the coronavirus. This type of technology was also used to make other vaccines that we know of, such as the vaccine to Ebola virus. There were initially 40,000 people, about 40,000 people in the Johnson & Johnson study before it was released for authorized use for the public. Common side effects of vaccination: arm soreness, redness and swelling at the site of injection, fever, chills, headache, muscle aches, weakness, and nausea. Some people say, oh, I've got the flu vaccine and then I ended up with the flu. It's kind of false because you're actually just building up immune defense to the invader. So all those are expected side effects of getting a vaccination. When I got my vaccine, I had arm soreness, no more than arm soreness of when you're working out in the gym or anything like that. There are some people who've had some more severe side effects, such as headaches and muscle aches, nothing that Tylenol or Motrin can't handle. There has been some controversies around vaccinations. The Johnson and Johnson vaccine, and about the first 7 million doses of those that went out, it was noticed that approximately 7 people had clotting issues. Up to now, the FDA has not found a causal link between that, the clotting that some people have experienced, and the 7 million people who got it. There are also some recipients of the PFIZER vaccine who experienced myocarditis, inflammation of the heart. Again, a very small percentage. A lot of those were seen in Israel, some in the United States, and again, a small percentage of the millions of doses of Pfizer that went out. What are some myths about vaccines? One of my favorites to debunk is that it's not the mark of the beast. I mentioned this last time we talked in December, and I still see it floating around the internet. And if you watch certain Christian television programs, there are a lot of myths that are associated with the vaccine that you hear there. It's not the mark of the beast. According to Revelations, mark of the beast doesn't come until after the church is raptured and we're all still here. So unless we've all been sinning and have not accepted Jesus as our Lord and Savior.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Excuse me, that's my iWatch interrupting. But yes, it's not the mark of the beast. It does not alter your DNA. It injects mRNA, which it doesn't even get into the nucleus of cells. Now, the nucleus is where DNA is stored. But when the mRNA gets into a cell, other proteins turn the mRNA into DNA of the spike protein. So the actual mRNA never makes it into the nucleus of the cell. It does not inject the actual virus. So you're not going to get the COVID vaccine and then contract coronavirus. There have been some people to receive one or both doses of the vaccine, but they're not in the full incubation period of the vaccine and they're not fully immunized and they contracted coronavirus. I've seen a few of those cases come into the emergency department, usually because they're not fully immunized, but it does not inject the actual coronavirus into you. That would also be very unethical. It does not inject a microchip. If anything, we carry our microchips with us, iWatch or Apple Watch, iPhone, or whatever smartphone you use. That's how the government and other agencies can track you. But we are not, at least not yet, at the point of injecting microchips into humans on a mass scale. If you've had COVID before, you should still get the vaccine. What we've seen before is that folks who have had COVID and then contracted it later on actually have a worse experience with the disease than those who just contract COVID one time. Another myth is that it causes infertility. There is no documented cases of COVID vaccines causing infertility, and that you should still wear a mask even if fully vaccinated. I heard Pastor mention that earlier. Still wear your mask, still social distance, even though he's been fully vaccinated and well past the immunization period. I know that there's confusion and disinformation coming from various sources. The CDC, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and the World Health Organization, they sometimes say conflicting messages. Most recently, the World Health Organization is recommending that even vaccinated people still wear a mask. I do agree with that. I think that the mask mandate being removed about a month ago was too soon, especially because we're not at herd immunity. We have reached 70% here in New York, but that's only 70% of people getting at least one dose. And the reason why we're not at herd immunity yet is because of that factor, and also because there are children around. Children 12 and under aren't eligible for the vaccine, and so therefore they increase risk for the general community of contracting coronavirus. And with New York being open, tourists are back as well. The city has set up some vaccination sites at popular areas, but it's up to tourists, if they're not already vaccinated, to actually receive it. Just in public, I would continue to wear a mask, continue social distance. You don't know who's vaccinated from who's not when you see them on the street or in a restaurant or at church or wherever you're going. And at the end of the day, people are going to be people. You could depend on people to sometimes not be truthful, especially for those who are not a part of the kingdom yet. So continue to wear a mask and protect yourself. And no, you will not become magnetic. I think it'd actually be pretty cool to have those magneto powers for anyone who follows Marvel and X-Men and things like that. But you will not become magnetic. What are some pros and cons to getting a vaccine? What pros are: you have increased protection against severe disease and death from getting the vaccine. Moderna and Pfizer are about 95% effective in preventing severe disease, hospitalization, and death from coronavirus. Johnson Johnson is about 75, 76% effective. And it's a little lower because it's based on the regions of the world where the trials happen. It was about 85% in South Africa and 65% elsewhere. When you average it out, it ends up being about 76%. Another pro is you could increase ability to travel and attend events that require proof of vaccination. As you know, you can see behind Bishop, there's some cruises, and maybe Bishop likes to cruise. I hope to cruise one day too. Actually been on a cruise one time in Egypt. It was amazing. You should do it. But some cruise lines are requiring proof of vaccination. Others who are not requiring proof of vaccination, you can still go, but you're in a quarantine space. You can't do all the activities, and you still have to wear a mask. So pro is that you have increased ability to travel and attend events. And in some cases, you can go maskless, but I caution against that depending on where you are. Cons of getting the vaccine, I don't think there are many. Without the vaccine, you're more vulnerable to death and severe disease and consequences, sometimes long-term consequences of the vaccine. The truth is, all of this is new. It all happened within the last year and a half. And the vaccine, while excellent technology was used and very good, thorough studies, and I do trust and believe in it, we actually don't know what's going to happen 3, 5, 10 years from now. I know that some are concerned that they may die. I maybe just given the field that I'm in, like I see death all the time, and I know that it's appointed unto man once to die, right? So I know it's morbid to think about. I'm not a morbid person, but the fact of the matter is, we're supposed to number our days so we could apply our hearts unto wisdom. Everyone's going to die one day. We don't know what's going to happen years from now, but we know right now that the vaccines are safe and effective. And you have to continue to wear a mask everywhere if you don't get the vaccine. But even if fully vaccinated when out in public, just because you don't know who's around you, just wear a mask is my recommendation. Ultimately, you and your doctor, not me, should decide on whether or not you should get the vaccine. If you're a healthy individual, you probably don't need to consult your doctor. And you could just go to any vaccination site, and you don't even need an appointment at this point. You could just walk right in and get it. Most pharmacies also have them. Now, initially, I was like that young man you see on your screen, very skeptical and wondering about what was going to happen with the virus, with the vaccine. Is it safe? I opted to wait and see what happened. I saw millions of people get it. A lot of my colleagues got it. And with all the research that I have done personally, looking into it, looking into actual some of the studies as well, I determined that it was best for my health, especially with what I do and being in public, and for my family's safety, to get vaccinated. So that not just about me not getting it, because I'm an otherwise healthy guy. If I got it, I'm probably going to be fine, even though there's some people who are otherwise healthy got it and died. But also not to spread it to anyone else. So something for you all to think about. I know that there's some skeptics in the crowd. Maybe there are none. But if there are, I was like you too. And with all my research, I determined that it was safe, especially when debunking all of those vaccine myths. A word of caution, you do get a vaccine card when you do get your vaccinations. Please don't post those on social media or online, period. It's easy now to find your information just by posting that card. People can see your name, date of birth, and that sort of information and find out more about you. Also, people have been making and selling fake vaccine cards. So and they've been doing it so that they can go on some of those trips and cruises that I mentioned earlier. The heart of man is desperately wicked, and some people lie. So you just want to be careful and not put your information out there and protect yourself. Where can you get the vaccine? You could definitely check vaccinefinder.nyc.gov or check your local municipality. I know there's folks from the UK watching and other parts. Again, as I mentioned, there's some designated COVID vaccine centers, such as at the Javits Center, and others, some at schools throughout the city. Most pharmacies have them as well. And again, you don't have to necessarily make an appointment. A lot of those places you could just walk right in. Many of the local hospitals and their clinics have them as well. I happen to get mine from where I work. Other COVID treatments, you've probably heard about remdesivir. It's an antiviral. It's given to people in a certain phase who meet criteria to get it, and that means they've already had the virus. And this is for more severe cases, like those folks, they're usually like in the hospital, sometimes in the ICU, and they're having very severe disease. Another tool is monoclonal antibodies. This is specifically the way my hospital works with this is that it's specifically for patients of a certain age and older who have comorbidities or health problems. So you have to meet a certain criteria to even get the monoclonal antibodies. There are some people we've diagnosed with COVID and they're not sick enough to stay, but they're also don't meet criteria to get the antibodies. So we just send them home, supportive care, Tylenol, rest, and such. And then you've probably heard about ivermectin, probably received a WhatsApp message about ivermectin. There have been some studies about ivermectin, and they look promising. I looked into them myself as well. They're small studies though, and what needs to happen is that there needs to be longer, wider studies like the vaccines. The vaccines had at least 30,000 people in their studies. So something like ivermectin, which is likely being studied now in India, where they had a very severe case of the Delta variant, ivermectin is likely being studied there. The FDA has not approved use of ivermectin, and it's not standard of care here in the United States. It might be promising though, so we'll keep an eye out for that. I know I went through a lot of information, and I do have time for questions. Are there any? Overseer, pastor, I also can't see a chat, so if there are questions, you could just let me know if there are questions in the chat.
Yeah, if you do the stop sharing,
yes, I will stop sharing.
yeah, this way they can. All right, then let me open up their mics. All right, opportunity now for questions, Dr. McHugh. Anyone? Let me throw one up. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Hi, Dr. McHugh, Pastor Ty from the UK. I've got too many questions, but I just want to put out probably maybe two. So let me state my position. People will probably call me an anti-vaxxer, although I don't take that moniker. That's probably what people would determine me as. So two things I just want to ask. China still has a death rate of about 4,000. Bearing in mind the virus was first discovered there, and I'm not saying that you have the answer to that. I just want to put this out. You got 600,000 deaths in America, but China has 4,000. If you do the table of the countries with the highest deaths, you will find out they're OECD countries. So that means they're economically vibrant countries or developed world countries. So at the start of the pandemic, it was said that, countries with poor health systems were going to be impacted the most. My sister lives in Nigeria, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, even though they said that, the numbers have gone up, I don't think that the numbers are over 5,000 dead, okay, in the whole country. So if you take out the fact that you say they have poor recording systems, et cetera, if there was a wave of people dying, you would know because you'll see them piled up on the street. That hasn't happened. So when you mentioned about communities of color, the Black communities in America or the UK or other countries being adversely affected by this, can anybody explain to me why in Africa as a whole, the virus has not taken hold? That was question number one, and I've got to choose the questions I'm going to ask you. The other one is about economic activity. We talked about the Bible, and it talks about the mark of the beast, and some people said that COVID-19 is a precursor to that. If the government tells me that I cannot engage in certain activity, economic or otherwise, if I don't have the vaccine, what do you call that? Because there have been vaccine drives in the past. There's been a pandemic in the past. We've had it in the last century. They never tied you taking a vaccine to any kind of economic activity. It has never been done, ever. But this time round, they have. And to me, that if it walks like a duck and it smells like a duck, then that's what it is. And so those are just two questions. I can't keep going on, otherwise you won't be able to answer them.
Thank you for your questions. Let me start with the first one. Why is it that community colors in more developed nations experience this? And I actually think this is a multifactorial reasons for why this happened. I'll start with that, especially in the US, it never should have been a political thing. It's a medical thing that affected everybody. We had leadership at the time that one first called it a hoax, and then he got the disease and then got vaccinated later on. And because of, excuse me one moment.
Yeah, so while Dr. McHugh is on the job, those are pointed questions, Pastor Ty, and I know he's going to carefully craft his response. If you do look at the Johnson Hopson website for Africa, you will see, yes, a high penetration. I know the news tend to be more US-centric, depending on where you are and what station you watch. But the Hopkins website does give us a full scale. And again, that's depending on data, right? If the data is not being reported, they cannot be published. So that can also be a factor with the reporting. So if the data is not there, you won't see the reports. But if you're on the ground, you will hear that it's really hitting countries like Africa. Back to you, Dr. McHugh.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that, everyone.
No, that's all right. We know you're on the job.
So one, Pastor is absolutely right. There is underreporting, and especially Western media. We don't cover places like countries in Africa as well as we should. I actually try and get my news from other places just to track that as well. But additionally, I think that it became too political here in Western places, the UK, and here in the US, people calling it a hoax, people not taking it seriously. A lot of people refuse to wear a mask. I still hear people talk about they don't want their kids wearing masks and it's a form of oppression. And I'm thinking, this is not oppression. This an inconvenience maybe, but like you've had a pretty nice, easy life if you think this is oppression. And because of the recklessness that has happened here, it spread much faster. And it just kept spreading. And then also in the West, we deal with structured, institutionalized racism that keeps people from getting the access to care that they need. I remember when COVID was really hitting New York really bad, one site where I worked, a lot of the residents there were able to leave New York completely. And that's Midtown Manhattan. But then you head out to places like Queens and the Bronx, where it's majority Black and Latinos living there. They got the brunt of it. There's nowhere to escape to. There's usually multi-generational living. So it's grandma plus parents plus kids, sometimes uncles, aunts, and cousins, and other people in a smaller condensed setting. And the virus is going to run rampant there as well. So that's why I think it spread further in those communities.
So, Doctor, I wanted to make the point, most of my data, and in the early days, I was tracking it. So the US, UK, certain countries in Africa, Nigeria specifically, they all kind of like got the virus at roughly the same time. And so if you look at the chart data on the World Health Organization website, and you see how the numbers progress in those OECD countries that I mentioned, you can see their progression going upwards. Now, Nigeria has a population of 130 odd million people. If you're having a problem in the Bronx and New York and predominantly African American areas of population, and you got a country with 130 million Africans in it, right? And that virus is not exploding in that country with a minimal health care system. I mean, they have nothing like what the US has. The very narrative is counterintuitive, because those countries should have gone off the deep end a lot sooner. There's not 600,000 people dead in Nigeria of COVID.
I think we're missing some important factors as well. Again, every country regulates differently. Now, think of China, which you mentioned as well, which has a population of 1 billion. If you were a visitor in China, even if you were a citizen and you came from abroad and you landed on China's borders, if let's say you were going to Shanghai, but you landed in Beijing, you were doing a mandatory 2-week quarantine in Beijing on your dime. You could not leave. There's military making sure you didn't leave, and you're getting tested there, and you cannot proceed past Beijing's, you can't even proceed past quarantine where you are in Beijing to go to Shanghai or anywhere else in China until you finish your 2-week mandatory time. That never happened in the United States. The United States was letting everyone in from everywhere. So there's regulatory agencies that are regulating differently. And also, you could speak to Nigeria better than I can, but I've noticed that other places where I have traveled to, there was no issue with wearing a mask. People would wear a mask, people would sanitize and social distance without complaining or saying that it's oppression. Here and in the UK, there's big debate about it. Again, people calling it a hoax, people not taking it seriously. And when that happens, it's going to spread. I just want to quickly address your second question. Is this like leading up to the mark of the beast? Because I don't believe this is the mark of the beast at all. If you just look at it scripturally, it's not, and we're all still here. But does it lead to? Absolutely. Like, but even your cell phone does too, right? Like the way that systems are being created to have a one of everything. If you even look at cryptocurrency, which is popular right now, and trying to centralize that, every time, like, if you think of any system that's making it easier for people to do something, especially automated, we're heading in that direction. Like the church isn't just going to be raptured and the Antichrist shows up and like, here, everyone here, just take the mark of the beast. There's going to be a way where you've already been buying and selling. You're used to this type of commerce, and it's just going to be more centralized. Like you can use your Metro card to swipe and go anywhere in New York. And now you don't even need that anymore. You could pay with your Apple Watch. You could pay with your phone and just tap it and go. Like all those things. Every time you tap and pay for your coffee at Starbucks or whatever cafe you go to, those types of things lead to a centralized system as well. This is just one component of it. This isn't it itself. And I just want to address another question real quick that I got in the chat. Can I clarify for those with doubts who've had underlying conditions who are reluctant to take it? Absolutely. We already know from research that those who have comorbidities, your overweight, hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, or other illnesses, chronic illnesses, you are at extreme risk of hospitalization and death from coronavirus. I absolutely recommend that you get it. I appreciate both questions. I hope I was able to answer some of those questions there. I just wanted to give some time if anyone else had.
Thank you, Dr. McHugh. I saw a hand. Dr. Burrell, unmute your and go ahead and ask your question. I see your hand. I want to acknowledge you.
Okay, bless the Lord, overseer. God bless you to our bishop and all the other ministers and my brothers and sisters. Dr. McHugh, it's good to hear your voice again, sir. I'd listened to you way back in December, but I'm still uncomfortable in this respect that well, I had when I did a test, the blood test, it showed that I had the antibodies. I didn't have the full-blown corona. So, you know, but the antibodies were there, and I heard that it was very strong. And I decided to take my first shot recently, and it did create a serious problem in the sense that I had a whole lot of pain and the sluggishness and all the other symptoms that they say might would have accompanied that shot. But I'm just wondering, because for persons who have the antibodies, they were using plasma to treat other sick patients who had the corona. What effect is the vaccine on on my antibodies that are there? Will it destroy it? Because I asked a nurse, one said yes, and another one said no, it would not interfere with it.
No, it wouldn't interfere. Thank you for your question. The vaccine would likely enhance the antibodies that are already present. What vaccines do is create antibodies, so they don't destroy other antibodies in the process of making new antibodies. So the vaccine would just enhance what you already have present there. I don't know your underlying health conditions. I know that you already had one dose. If it's the Johnson & Johnson, that's fine.
Pfizer.
If it was Pfizer, okay. Again, what you mentioned were expected side effects, and they range from every individual. I just had arm soreness. But what the folks can do is after they start to experience, as soon as they start to experience, take a Motrin, and that usually helps bring it down. When my sister got her second dose, she had severe symptoms in terms of the muscle aches and the tiredness.
Yes. That's what.
She took a Motrin, and then she felt much better. So I do try and suggest with patients and just those I come in contact, those who are getting it, Have Motrin on hand and ready to go so that once you start feeling symptoms, you don't want to take it before getting vaccinated because that could actually blunt the immune response. It would blunt the creation of the antibodies. But you take it after, as soon as you start to feel symptoms, then you could take a Motrin and you should feel much better.
All right, thank you. Okay, let me do a time check. We got 5 minutes. I see a hand and there's a question in the chat. Let me take the hand first and then I'll take the question in the chat. Sis, you may unmute your line and ask your question. Thank you, dear. Unmute your phone, sis. Let me send you the, okay, just click on my response there. While sis gets herself together. The question, Dr. McHugh, what about people with asthma? I heard the vaccine is bad for them. Is that so? Plain and simple.
Yeah, I highly recommend people with asthma get it. We've seen patients with coronavirus who also have underlying lung pathology such as asthma have severe disease because of it. And what we don't want is patients ending up on ventilators again and such. So I recommend it. It doesn't affect those with asthma. Though one group of people I'd be concerned about, other than children, because it hasn't been studied enough and released for authorized use. If you've had an allergic reaction to a vaccine in the past, then please discuss with your doctor before proceeding further. Otherwise, I advocate for its use. Another question is the medical professions all in agreement with the vaccine? A study came out the other day that at least here in the United States, 94% of physicians have received vaccination. I am aware that if you watch certain Christian television networks or even some news networks, there's some people who call themselves doctor. So if you watch any of those, because I've seen some, my mom sent them to me. I've looked them all up. I looked up each and every last one of them. I checked their credentials. Some of them are not at all authorized to talk about what they're talking about. You're always going to have people at opposition and not in full agreement. That's in everything, even in theology. So, but if the overwhelming majority of doctors in the U.S. received it, I think it says something. So,
all right, thank you. Let me pose this last one to you regarding wearing of the mask and being vaccinated. We have heard Dr. Fauci mentioned, depending on the size of the crowd, depending on if you're indoor versus outdoor, there's some flexibility with the mask. Churches, right? The government says very little bit about churches. We know we are in an environment where we have to speak and aerosols, right? And I don't think we have the proper ventilation system. We try to use a plexiglass. We sometimes do 6 feet social distance. What it is, if you are in a setting like that and you know you are vaccinated, should you be worried and remove your mask, or should you just throw caution to the wind and still wear the mask because of where you are?
Yeah, great question. And I guess on behalf of the regulatory agencies, which I think are a little bit too much persuaded and pushed, maybe bullied by government and other hands, I know that there's a back and forth about masks. I don't have a Dr. Fauci-like platform. What I will say to you, my brothers and sisters, with the platform that I have right now, is just, even if fully vaccinated, just wear a mask while in public. Outdoors in a lighter setting, if you're vaccinated, you could probably get away with not wearing it. But if you're going to be indoors, if aerosols are around, if it's a closed space, if you're around people you don't know, if people who potentially are not vaccinated, you don't know who's carrying what, just wear a mask. And even if the CDC next week says, again, you could take your mask off, and the World Health Organization says, again, you could take your mask off, they may say 2 weeks from then to wear it again. just wear it, and I will let you know when because even when the agencies and the government said you could go mask free if you've been vaccinated, I'm thinking to myself, you have no idea who's vaccinated from who's not. I'm going to keep wearing my mask because I just can't trust people, and I have to take care of myself and my family. And I'm sure that you all want to do likewise. So when you're in church, I started going to in-person church again. Like many of you, I've been Zooming and YouTubing the whole year. But it was nice to be back in the house, but we're all separated and we're all wearing our masks except for the people who are up front speaking or singing and such. But you could sing with your mask on, you could speak with your mask on. I recommend mask use. I know it's sometimes uncomfortable. If it's that uncomfortable, please just wear a surgical mask. They're light. They don't have to be those heavy masks that I see some people wearing. But please wear a mask, especially in larger groups. There's going to be back and forth between the CDC, the World Health Organization, local government, and it's too political that I care for. And I just care about people. And at the end of the day, I just want to see people do well. So my recommendation to you, talk to your doctor, get vaccinated if you're eligible and you can, and wear a mask, especially in large group settings and if you're indoors.
Dr. McHugh, I just want to say thank you, sir. Second time around, it's always been a pleasure having you. And we recorded it. It's also been streamed live on YouTube and Facebook. And I know folks will definitely tune in. Yes, as a church, we have embraced the mask wearing, especially when we're having in-person services. And we rather err on the side of caution. And since we don't really know exactly who's vaccinated, and even though the city has 70% and it's still not herd immunity, I looked at the numbers, the Bronx is 38%. So if your zip code is 38%, then you're not ready to do what the city is doing. So as a church, we will show wisdom. So thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate you. We'll be in touch. I know you're on the job. Let me just put the screen back up real quick. Just want to, just by way of announcement, again, if you have a chance, just clap your hand for Dr. Joshua McHugh for coming in. He's on the job. Take time out. All right. So we have a full break now until 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, we'll come back. I will be presenting on the church in the digital age, dealing primarily with the COVID and what is our strategy going forward. You know, we were thrust into this and we have so many different platforms, and I know it's fragmented, and what we need to do going forward. So I'd like to share with you some of the best practices that, you know, not just only what my church has done or this organization, but best practices across the globe, and how we can move forward and what would I recommend for you. So chime in. It's going to be very technical, but I'll do my best to keep it palatable and so that we can really glean from it. God bless you. God bless you. Bishop, any words there, sir?
Yes, I just want to thank Dr. McHugh for coming on and dispensing all this information for us.
Yes.
I really do appreciate it. You put a more scientific approach behind it. And I guess, you know, a couple of questions are answered. So minds are probably a little bit calmer with the information that you have gotten from the questions that you have asked. I know that you're on this evening, so I just want to inform you, by the time you get on this evening, I'm actually on my way to church already. And you probably won't see me on this evening because the audio system is not talking to the computers at church. And I have to go over and the engineers coming to fix it so we all get set up before service starts tonight. So if you don't see me on tonight, I'm on my way to church already. I'm in transit.
Yeah, but okay.
All right.
All right. God bless you, sir. God bless you, everyone. We appreciate you. Thank you for joining. Please share and like this. There are so many people who would love to glean from this information. God bless you. Love you all. Come back.